Hey guys, welcome to Platitude. So just to recap, fighting in World War II, some causes of World War II were the harshness of the Treaty of Versailles, put Germany in a bad place, appeasement, letting Hitler take more than he should have, a weak and ineffective League of Nations, economic worldwide depression, and the rise of totalitarian governments. Now, fighting in Europe, how it starts is Germany invades Poland in September of 1939. Now, at this point, Hitler is then going to move north instead of west towards France, and he's going to take Denmark and Norway. Now, this is important because the French are putting up the Maginot lines that are to protect their border with Germany, but it fails because once again the Germans are going to attack France from the north through Belgium, which is why Denmark and Norway are so important, because they back him up from the north. And so when that happens, France is going to fall to Germany in 6 weeks. Now watch what happens. Through Belgium, and then holy crap, Italy joins the fray, North Africa, whoa. Now, Britain is the only allied nation still fighting the Axis powers. So what Germany's goal is to go after Britain and force a negotiated peace. And that's going to be the Battle of Britain. It's going to be the very first Air Force battle, and it's going to be the Royal Air Force versus the Luftwaffe. And it's going to last anywhere from 3 to 12 months, depending upon the historian. British historians say 3 months, German historians say 12 months. It was probably somewhere in the middle. But here's the thing, Germany didn't want to try and cross the sea. They had Operation Sea Lion, that's what it was called, in the works, but they weren't ready for that because the Royal Navy was still a formidable force, right, especially in that area. And so they just didn't. So when they weren't able to get immediately negotiated peace, guess what Hitler decides to do? He decides instead he is going to break the non-aggression pact that he has with the Soviet Union and start invading the Soviet Union. So June of 1941, Stalin's now with the Allies and Germans are fighting a two-front war. Sort of, because look at all that red on the Western Front. So really, primarily, most of German forces are going against the Russians, right? But the Russians are like, they're BA. Watch what's happening with them. Okay, so here we are, October, November. Now watch what that line does. We are in the winter in Russia. Well, nothing's happening. And nothing happens again until the summer. Keep an eye on that. But at this point, Pearl Harbor has happened, Japan attacks the U.S., and America gears for war. Now, when this happens, Stalin starts immediately demanding, okay, now that you have reinforcements, you need to really open up a second front on the western side in France that will really force the Germans to pull some troops away from the eastern front. Nobody decides to do that, unfortunately, for Russia and Stalin. But the Russians don't give up because they, like I said, they're kind of BA in this war. Even though, look, they're getting defeated one after again and again and again, but they're pretty much holding their own. And it's not until even when the Americans are going to come through and they're going to enter through North Africa, because they think, we're going to go through North Africa, then up through Italy, which we consider the soft underbelly of the German military might, of the Nazi military, or the Axis powers, because we consider Mussolini weaker. And, watch what's happening. After Stalingrad, here it is, look on the Eastern Front. After Stalingrad, the Russians really start to move in they start moving west in a big way. So Stalingrad is considered the turning point of the European war, or the European theater. Now, the Americans at this point, and the British, they have taken over North Africa and the Middle East. They've taken it all back. And now they're heading up through Italy. And Italy turns out to be a much larger and harder fight than they expected. But notice they do start to make some advancement. But at the same time, if you keep your eye on that Eastern Front, this is where the Russians are really like, okay, take that. And they start pushing back the Germans in a big way. So then plans start to go into place for opening up a second front. They finally decide we're going to open up another front in France. And so they start planning Operation Overlord, or D-Day. So, and June 6, 1944, Allied troops are going to land on the beaches of Normandy, France. And it's going to be one of the largest operations ever in the history of war, right? Air, sea, and land. They've got all kinds of war machines and war material just like hitting the beaches of France. And there are huge, heavy losses, right? But by August of 1944, watch what's happening on the Eastern Front. Russia's already pretty much made it to Germany. And then watch what's happening on the other side. France is taken back over by September of 44. And the Germans, like in October, they initiate the Battle of the Bulge. And they give one last counterattack. They basically throw everything they have at this. But look at that map. That is, like, even for me, and I'm like, yay, Allies. But it's kind of scary looking as the two sides converge on Germany. And what happens is, like, look at the Russians. They're, like, going at it full force. And the British, the French, and the Americans actually slow their entry into Germany. But here we are, May. Germany surrenders, Hitler commits suicide, Russians enact atrocities in Berlin. Now let's move to the Pacific, okay? Japanese had expansionist values. Let's keep this in mind. They felt it was honorable to die for the emperor, dishonorable to surrender, that it would disgrace their family. The emperor was worshipped as a deity, and there was pride in race and nation. Now, if we look at this, there's a lot going on in this map, and it explains quite a bit, right? So I just want to kind of briefly overview. All of the Pacific is taken over by the Japanese between December 41 and May 42. Philippines will fall. This is where General MacArthur really starts to make a name for himself. He says, I shall return. After he gets through the Bataan Death March, which is a terrible, terrible thing. We have the Aleutian Islands. They're taken. It's the only thing taken in the Western Hemisphere. But eventually Japanese expansion is stopped because of all these battles. First, the Battle of Coral Sea, the Battle of Midway, which is considered the turning point of the war in the Pacific, and Guadalcanal. Then we began the island hopping, or the leapfrogging. Admiral Nimitz, Hawaii to Guam, General MacArthur, Australia to the Philippines. Guam is taken in July of 44, Philippines in October of 44, so MacArthur was right, he did return. And then we are prevented from moving too much more forward because of a small little island called Iwo Jima. I'm going to let you just kind of read. I'll be clicking through things on the screen and playing some music.
Imperial headquarters announced a state of war with the United States. We'll repeat that again. A Japanese flag. Imperial headquarters announced a state of war with the United States.
So after we win a much harder battle than we thought we were going to do, than we thought it was going to be, we win Iwo Jima. It allows us to get to Japan proper. We enter Okinawa, southern coast. We realize, or we think we realize, that it's going to be a much harder battle to take actual Japan. We decide to drop the bombs, and that's it. The end. Thanks for watching. Bye.